and all that stuff. Everybody says they remember that, but I remember that day, and what happened in the days and weeks afterwards. So Jim, do you want to pass out those two? Oh, you've got them out. Okay, all right. So let's work at the first at the ethical will. Now, what I want to look at the questions that you have in front of you. I'm sorry. Let's work first at the philanthropic autobiography. And again, I just want you to start this story because each of us has a philanthropic autobiography. It turns out that everybody has benefited from philanthropy in some way. We're not just donors; we are also recipients. And think about the ways in which philanthropy has benefited you. So first question is, what was your earliest experience with philanthropy? And I just told you the earliest memory I have is the volunteer fire department. I've just been asked to write an essay for Indiana's bicentennial coffee table book, and that essay is going to start with the volunteer fire department is alive and well. And my first experience with philanthropy being the volunteer fire department in my little hometown of St. Meinrad, Indiana. That's part of what philanthropy is today. And by the way, the volunteer fire department is alive and well in the communities that still have them. And it's a great way for people in the community to help each other. There are some communities where there are waiting lists to get on the volunteer fire department. It's one of the most powerful places for people to come together in the community to do something together. What are some of the ways you or your family has benefited from philanthropy or voluntary action? What are some of the key philanthropic acts of others that are memorable to you? And by the way, having somebody else do memorable philanthropic acts is powerful. Although we have research now that shows when you're talking about kids, talking to them is more important than the actions that you take yourself. So being a good role model is important, but talking with them about it is even more important. Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of a fooler, but a project just done by the Women's Philanthropy Institute at the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy shows that talking to boys and girls is more important than role modeling alone. So look at some of those questions. What does philanthropy mean to you? So let's try to get at least down to number 5. Okay? So I want you to work at that a little bit. Try to write down some answers here. Jim can also send you out a blank copy of this. We can get blank copies of this. So don't worry about ruining this one. But I think it's good to, this is good. Get some thoughts down on paper, because another thing that you can find from communications research is that if you actually write some things down here today, you might in fact continue this after you leave. If you never write anything on that sheet of paper, you're going to put it in a folder somewhere and never pull it out again. So put some things down on there, and I want to have a little conversation about them. So you need to have something down because I might call on you. Let's just stop and who wants to share some answers to question number 1, the earliest experience that you can remember with philanthropy and volunteerism? What was the earliest experience?
Well, it didn't shape me, but in Catholic school we had to raise money for those pagan babies. I had no idea.
Oh, yeah. I've been there too, yeah.
And so we were all
Did something terrible, right? Yeah, I remember that too. Yeah, I had forgotten that till you said that. I had some when the phrase "pagan baby" was used. I had some kind of strange image about a child with hardly any face. It's kind of faceless person. Yeah, I went to the same Catholic school as you did. So, other kind of experiences.
When I was a little girl, my parents had bought a piece of land. I'm from South Carolina originally, and on that land there was an old house that an old couple had lived in, an old black couple. They were in their late 80s, early 90s, and they were named to the Goodines. And I remember going out there, my parents, they stayed on the, they said that was fine, you can stay here at the house and for the rest of your life, and that's fine, and my parents weren't doing anything with the land. Anyway, point is they then trumped the four of us, I have 3 sisters, out there every holiday to bring them food and warm blankets and make sure they had enough firewood and that sort of stuff to kind of help take care of them. They didn't have a lot, their family had moved away and stuff like that, and so they didn't live there. And I remember that, I remember that vividly, those experiences of going out there with the Goodines and visiting with them and learning about the life that they led and all of that, how different it was from ours. But that was the first time that I had been really exposed to that as a kid.
Did you feel good about that?
I
Was it a
do.
pleasant experience?
It was very pleasant. It was awkward. I remember as a kid not knowing, because they were so poor. I mean, it was a dirt floor, and they lived in one room during the winter because it was so cold, and they couldn't go upstairs because it wasn't as safe anymore to go up there. But I remember as we knew them better, and it was a positive thing to be there doing that with them and helping make sure that they were healthy and okay.
Yeah, interesting. Other thoughts? Other thoughts?
Our church youth group, when I was a teenager, we went out to Detroit and helped, it was a missions trip, to rebuild houses and to feed people, and it was a great experience because I really felt we were making a difference, and it was a lot of hard work, but so that was a great volunteering experience. And I also had to raise money for, I'm a singer, so I had to travel. This is right out of college, and so I had to raise about $5,000. That was a lot back then. I didn't think it could happen, but I wrote my letters and did all that. It was very challenging, but it was a good experience, and I learned out of that you cannot thank people enough.
Yeah. And you raised money so you could
So I could travel.
you could travel and sing.
With this group. And
So you really,
went to Europe and.
really, you're an early beneficiary of
Yes.
philanthropy as well. So, yeah. Other thoughts? What's important about this, I think, is that how did it helps if you begin sharing, talking about this in terms that make sense to you as well. It helps the other person think about this. When I tell you that my earliest experience with this was, in fact, the house burning, that helps you think about, if I'm talking to you about these things, it helps you think about it as well. Other thoughts? Anybody else want to share something? Well, how about the second question? What are some of the key philanthropic acts of others that are memorable to you? Something you noticed.
When my father, when his health was failing, we moved him into a facility, a senior living facility in Indianapolis. And most of us lived farther away, so we couldn't visit with him every day. But there were volunteers there who would go out of their way to look after him, help him write letters, things like that. He was losing his vision, all kinds of things. And it mattered tremendously to us to know that there was somebody who could act in our stead or keep company with him. He was a very, very social man, and even just to go in and chat with him meant a great deal when we couldn't be there ourselves.
So that was actually a later act, but it wasn't early in your life, but it was a later act that you've remembered. Yeah. Okay. Other answers to that question. The energy's going down, folks. Kristen, you've filled out all these. What's
one of the memorable acts is my husband and I are foster parents, and our neighbors have been really generous to us, whether they've seen me trying to push. We have 3 little ones right now, and they gave us a stroller that has 2 seats, or just putting money in our mailbox for Christmas time, and kind of crossing that social barrier to get more involved in our lives. As they've seen children, they want to help the children out. So.
Yeah. Foster parentship is a tremendous way of providing something back, and it's great to see other people recognizing that and trying to help you out with it. because the money the state gives you is not, you can't make money off of that.